Accessing peace. Existing without violence, with the ability to calmly resolve conflict. Downloading love. An overwhelming, deep, positive affection towards others. Activating liberty. Living your life as you see fit without infringing on the lives of others.
Welcome to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com. I am your host, Darryl W. Perry, the Liberty Penguin, the Wombat, the uncut cocaine of libertarianism, and we're at episode 401. Now, you may have noticed that I did something completely different for episode 400, and don't forget, there's the contest going on with that. And, of course, the contest is you find the audio Easter eggs. There were 12 of them, I think, possibly 13. Might have been a baker's dozen. But anyway, there's right around 12 audio Easter eggs hidden in that episode. You find them, and you put them in an email. You send the email to contest@fppradio.com. And for each audio Easter egg that you locate, you will get one entry, and if you correctly identify all of them, you will get 10 additional entries. And next Sunday, or actually this upcoming Sunday, on Christmas Day, I will put those entries in a random number generator and determine a winner, and I will announce that winner next Monday. Now, I did have somebody over the weekend message me and ask, what's an Easter egg? And I said, it's a reference to an inside joke, something along those lines. And I'll actually wind up giving a freebie. So if you're listening right now, you will wind up getting a free entry. Again, you still have to put it in an email. Use subject line episode 400. Again, send that email to contest@fppradio.com. And the freebie that you're getting is that the Cell 411 driver, the voice of that was my executive producer, Roger Paxton. So that's your freebie. Put that in an email, identify the rest of them, and then you wind up getting more entries. But now that you have one of the audio Easter eggs given to you, hopefully now you'll understand what it is that you're looking for. And that's the only Easter egg where the voice of the person is the Easter egg. And I actually wound up giving you a reference, and this is kind of a clue, not an actual Easter egg, but a reference to one of the Easter eggs in giving you the answer, or rather telling you what one of the Easter eggs was. So, just from what I've said so far, you basically can figure out two of the Easter eggs. So, yeah, there's that. Don't forget, the entry must be in by Saturday. So, must be to me by Christmas Eve, December 24th. Again, contest@fppradio.com. Subject line, episode 400. Put all of those Easter eggs that you're able to find in the email. Now, I know that, this is the, quote-unquote holiday season, and a lot of people deal with sort of depression and pessimism around this time. Well, I've got an article here from Archetypes, How to Deal with Pessimism, or actually how to deal with pessimistic thoughts. And then hopefully, if I'm able to, I'll get into 10 benefits of mindfulness meditation backed up by science. And I say these things as kind of being hand in hand of, like how to deal with the pessimistic thoughts and the depression, but then what you can do in addition to these couple of suggestions on dealing with the depression, or more specifically, pessimistic thoughts, because you can be pessimistic without being depressed. But I digress and continue. The article begins, "The human mind is an amazing entity. We have the power to comprehend some of the most intricate and abstract ideas regarding our entire universe, while also having the ability to create depressing and detrimental cycles of thought that can lead to despair. Pessimism and cynicism are especially rampant in today's world, in which news of violence, poverty, and starvation penetrate our thought every single day of our lives. Unfortunately, this makes it easy to allow our optimism to fall by the wayside and start assuming that the worst-case scenario is often the most realistic possibility. If this has happened to you, you're not alone. That probably doesn't make you feel any better, though. Instead of falling back on the idea that misery loves company, it's important to take action in order to get yourself back on track and thinking positively about your life and the world around you. The article then begins by, or doesn't begin, there's obviously, the preface to the article, but the first subheader is Understand Your Negative Thinking. Once you recognize that your thoughts have become overwhelmingly pessimistic, you need to understand how this has come to be. Has a traumatic experience affected your thoughts in a negative way? Have you experienced changes in your life that have been tough to deal with? And this is something, I'm just going to pause here real quick. This is something that a lot of people will sort of dismiss. Not the people that are, going through the tough times and feeling a little pessimistic, but the people trying to cheer them up. They'll say, well, don't worry about what happens. Everything happens for a reason. They'll come up with all of these mantras that sound good, but in practice are not necessarily easy to wind up putting into place. Or they'll just sort of discount negative things that have happened to people and say, well, you just need to stop thinking about those things. And it would be akin to, telling somebody who has severely cut their hand, well, if you just stop thinking about your hand, it's not going to hurt. Just stop thinking about your hand being cut, and the blood will just stop magically. Well, that's not exactly how things happen. You have to treat the source of the pain. You have to treat that. And a lot of people want to dismiss the source of the pain and just say, well, ignore it, and it goes away. But that's not always the case. And the article here says, if this is the case, if there's been a traumatic experience or severe changes that have been difficult to deal with, you might actually need to go seek some professional help. There's no shame in that. The real shame is in ignoring the issues that you're facing and remaining stagnant rather than moving forward in your life. If you've analyzed your thoughts and realize you don't really have much to be upset about, you've taken the first step towards recovering your optimistic demeanor. However, it won't be easy to just let go of the negativity. It will require you to recognize when you're thinking pessimistically and to change your perspective on life in general. As the article says earlier, it's not easy. Don't mean to oversimplify the problem, but it is possible to change whether you see the glass as half empty or half full. There's more. Stay tuned here to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com.
In 1999, Darryl W. Perry began a search for traditional values, which led him down a path to the ideas of liberty. He tells the story in A Rebel's Journey, My Path to Liberty. Of the book, Dr. Brian Sovereign says, sometimes it's funny, and sometimes I think it's crazy, but it's always authentic. Find A Rebel's Journey, My Path to Liberty by Darryl W. Perry on Facebook, read reviews on Amazon, ask for A Rebel's Journey wherever books are sold, or visit arebelsjourney.com.
It is the year 91,001 BCE. Witness humanity's origins in Hyperchronius, a classic role-playing game for Windows PCs, with a story like no other game before. A liberty-oriented experience that is not to be missed. Go to ZOG.Ninja to get your copy of Hyperchronius today. Use the code FPP to get $1 off. Hyperchronius, ZOG.Ninja, code FPP.
This is Jeremy Scott, host of Dark 30. You're listening to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio with Darryl W. Perry.
Welcome back to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com. Before I continue with the article here, I want to make sure that I tell you about a way, especially, the last-minute shopping is upon us, right? If you want to get things before the Christmas arrives, or especially before the end of the year. And I want to tell you about a way that you can buy things while keeping your money in the free market. That is, assuming that you use free market money and promote Bitcoin as an alternative in a fiat-centric world. You need Spend-A-Bit, the search engine for things that you can buy with Bitcoin. Spend-A-Bit aggregates millions of products from thousands of Bitcoin-enabled merchants. Keep your money in the free economy. Spend a bit. Use my affiliate link, spendabit.fppradio.com, and if you're a Bitcoin accepting merchant like I am, ask about their merchant suite to reach even more customers. That's spendabit.fppradio.com. Spendabit.fppradio.com. Next on the ways to deal with pessimistic thought. After you understand the negative thinking, you need to recognize when you're overthinking. And this is something I've talked about before, where I have this problem of overthinking things, overanalyzing, thinking about all the various things that could happen in a situation, trying to relive a situation of what would happen if I did this, what would happen if I did that. But you can't go back and undo things. Sure, every now and then there are certain things that are interesting to consider, various thought experiments. That's one of the reasons the Alternate History Hub is such a popular YouTube channel. But you can't go back and undo things. As much as Vermin Supreme says that, he's going to have zombie-powered time travel so that he can go back and kill baby Hitler, it's never actually going to happen. Sure, it's fun to think about at times, but when you analyze a situation ad nauseum, it almost always leads to disaster. As mentioned earlier, when you overthink a specific issue, you more than likely start perceiving otherwise neutral scenarios in either a positive or a negative light. This is where Murphy's Law comes into play. And Murphy's Law being the anything that can go wrong will, although that's only one part of it, and I don't remember the entire thing. The article here continues, though. While you might believe a given scenario has a single best possible outcome, you'll likely be able to conjure up many more negative possible outcomes that will bog down your thought. Even if if these outcomes are probable, your mind can trick you into magnifying them while minimizing the chance of a successful outcome taking place. When this happens, you need to, first of all, recognize that you are overthinking, and then start taking action to alleviate your negative thoughts. The author here says it may help you to make a list of actually possible scenarios and weigh them against the other scenarios that you've made up in your mind. And whenever I read, I'm just going to pause here. Whenever I read about something, being made up in one's mind, I generally wind up thinking about the Onion story. The Onion obviously being satire. It's not quote-unquote fake news. It's satire. There's a huge difference between the two. But I digress and continue. The Onion has one of their stories about a drug that exists only in the minds of paranoid mothers called Scramp. And Scramp can be made from anything. And basically any teenage behavior is a sign that the teenager is on Scramp. And there's a funny, they did a video for it. The audio has been cut down to like a 1-minute thing that airs on the Liberty Radio Network, which is one of the outlets for this program. But there's one of the mothers saying, "My teenager just sits in his room all day. It's got to be the Scramp." And it's just hilarious because, it exists only in the minds of paranoid mothers who basically always think that their teenagers are on drugs. But that's what I think of whenever I see something about, this exists only in your mind. It's Scramp. It doesn't exist, and no matter what happens, it's a sign that this thing that exists only in your mind is actually real. The article here continues. Physically writing down these imaginary scenarios will help you realize how unwarranted your negative thoughts actually are, and will allow you to press forward by trusting your abilities to weather any negative outcomes may arise. Don't overgeneralize is the next thing on the list here about ways to deal with pessimistic thought. A lot of us fall victim to all or nothing thinking. And there's actually, I don't know how prevalent this is outside of the United States. And the only reason I mention that is because, especially with, political sorts of things, in the United States, because it's a two-party system, people always say, well, it's either A or B. You either support the Republicans or the Democrats. Well, what about the Green Party and the Libertarians, or the Independence Party, or the Constitution Party, or the American Delta Party, or the Reform Party, or any other of the myriad parties that exist? Well, if you support them, then you're just wasting your time, and you're actually supporting the party that I don't like. Well, no, I'm supporting the Libertarians because, that's what I support. My support for the Libertarian does not turn into support for a Democrat just because you're a Republican. And my support for Libertarians doesn't turn into support for Republicans just because you're a Democrat. But I digress. Again, there's this over-simplistic thinking that, while it's oversimplistic, it's also an overgeneralization of, as George Bush said 15 years ago, you're either with us or the terrorists. Well, no, I can actually think that you're both wrong here. But no, it's got to be, one or the other. No, it's both. I don't remember the commercial, some cereal commercial where the little girl, why not both? And it's sort of become a meme where when people online will post, well, should I do this or that? Somebody almost always inevitably finds the picture of the little girl, why not both? And slaps that in the comments. But I digress and continue. And actually, let me start back over with this section. A lot of us fall into the all or nothing thinking, especially in terms of our perception of how often things go wrong in life. From something as simple as believing you always hit every red light on the way home to more serious issues like you always mess up big projects, tunnel vision will distract you from the times things go as planned. Stay tuned. There's more here on Peace, Love, Liberty Radio.
Cell 411 is a free app for Android and iOS that replaces government-controlled 911. Cell 411 allows you to preset a group of friends or private organizations to show up in any emergency. Cell 411 is a nightmare for the state because it proves their so-called services aren't needed. Cell 411 has had thousands of installs, and of course it's covered by the BIPCOT no government license. Cell 411 because your friends won't shoot you when you're in trouble. Without the government, who would build the emergency services? You and Cell 411. Get it today at getcell411.com. That's getcell411.com.
When you hear the word lobbyist, you probably think about greedy corporations, but not all lobbyists are the same. Some are fighting for the freedoms you hold dear. Liberty Lobby LLC is doing just that in New Hampshire, working hard to represent you, not some special interest group. You can help by going to libertylobby.info, where your contribution will give us the tools we need to ensure that your voice is heard. Visit libertylobby.info today to find out more.
You're listening to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio with Darryl W. Perry.
Hey, welcome back to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com. Do you always hit every red light on the way home? You might think you do, but no, guarantee you that you hit a green light every now and then. You might have even, hit one of the green lights yesterday on your way home and, 4 red lights. Maybe you only live in a town that has 1 red light and you just think that you hit that one at red every time you drive home. But, yeah, it's not always as bad, but that's the way the mind works. I saw a study one time that said that you need, a certain number of compliments to sort of outweigh a insult or a negative comment. And that's kind of how things are with life, to where, there might be days where you hit more red lights than green lights, and so then you think that you always hit every red light, or maybe you goofed up on a project, or you didn't do the project exactly the way the boss wanted you to one time, but then there were all of those other projects that you did where the boss never said, you goofed up here. But, again, the mind will tend to gravitate towards those things that stand out. The tunnel vision here distracts you from the things that have actually gone exactly as planned. The truth is, you've more than likely had times when you've hit every green light on the way home, but that doesn't stick out in your mind because you don't focus on it as much as when you hit the red lights. On the same token, there's no possible way you always screw up at work. If this were true, you would not even have a job. Sure, you may have made a mistake here and there, but everybody does. Again, you only remember the moments that you messed up because those were the bumps in the otherwise smooth road that you were on. The all-or-nothing way of thinking not only negatively affects your perception of your abilities, but it also becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy of sorts. If you truly believe you don't ever do anything right, sooner or later you'll stop putting effort into doing your work and you'll actually prove yourself right. Be realistic about your abilities and recognize that though you've probably made your fair share of mistakes, you've also you've succeeded many times along the way. Neither your successes nor your failures define who you are as a person. What does define you is how you react to these outcomes. And finally, recognize the importance of skepticism. And some people might say that, you should never be a skeptic, but no, there's actually importance here. The yin and the yang. If it was just the yin or just the yang, well, it wouldn't have the same weight or the same benefit. And they say here, there's a fine line between being a skeptic and being pessimistic. So take this piece of advice with caution. While being pessimistic results in a defeatist attitude, being skeptical allows you to realize that things won't always work out for you, no matter what you do. The Serenity Prayer asks for the ability to accept the things you can't change and the courage to change the things that you can, and the wisdom to know the difference. The pessimist would complain about the things he can't change and look at the things he can change and think, why bother? But the skeptic will acknowledge that while he can't improve every problem in the world, he can do his best to change the ones he wishes to see in the world. Now, going over to the other article that I did mention earlier, 10 benefits of mindfulness meditation backed up by science. And mindfulness meditation is the practice of staying aware and in sync with your body and your surroundings, and often characterized by sitting in total silence with your legs crossed, your eyes shut, and your palms facing upwards. It would seem like something only monks would appreciate, but mindfulness meditation is a practice that all of us could use, especially in our stressful, fast-paced 9-to-5 city lives. And luckily, I don't have a 9-to-5 city life, but no comment on the fast-paced and stressful. Here they say science has actually suggested that the benefits of mindfulness-based meditation can be phenomenal. Here are 10 benefits of mindfulness meditation. They leave out the word meditation, but that's what it is, backed by science that you should know about. And before I get in to the article, I just want to remind you that, as always, the links will be in the show notes so that you can read the articles at your leisure. Mindfulness meditation eases aches and pains. If you struggle with back, neck, or other body aches and pains, part of that may actually be in your head. Not always, and this is me breaking in, not trying to, suggest otherwise. There might actually be a serious problem. So this is just saying that sometimes, so there are the people, the hypochondriacs or hyperchondriac, where, there's always something wrong with them severely. That's in the head. But, like if you have torn your ACL, no, that pain is real. There's actually some damage there. You can't just, think, oh, my knee doesn't hurt and make it not hurt. No, there's actually some damage there. But going on to the rest of what the article says, according to a 2011 study published in the April issue of the Journal of Neuroscience, the study found that just 80 minutes of mindfulness meditation could cut pain perception nearly in half. This study corroborates with another study conducted at the University of Montreal that studied 13 Zen meditators, all of whom had at least 1,000 hours of practice, compared with a group of non-meditators to see whether regular meditation practice would affect perception of pain. The results were overwhelming. The Zen meditators had a higher pain threshold than those who did not meditate. There's more about the benefits of mindfulness meditation backed by science that we'll get to in the closing moments of Peace, Love, Liberty Radio.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at weusecoins.com. That's weusecoins.com. Why do they hate us? Is libertarianism compatible with Islam? Davi Barker answers these questions and more in Voluntary Islam and Other Essays. He advances the voluntarist cause with analysis of the confluence of values between Islam and libertarianism, as well as contemporary movements from the Tea Party to the Arab Spring. Voluntary Islam by Davi Barker is available from Amazon.com and all major bookstores.
You're listening to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com.
Welcome back to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com. Definitely not time to read all of the paragraphs about the other 9 things that mindfulness meditation can help with, according to scientific studies. The first is ease aches and pains, but what they get down to in the latter part of the paragraph is that it can actually, meditation can actually increase your pain threshold. So it's not saying that it makes the pain go away or the damage that has been done not exist. It just allows you to tolerate more pain. Mindfulness meditation can enhance your sex life, according to some studies done back in 2011. The journal Psychosomatic Medicine found that mindfulness meditation training can enhance a woman's sexual experience, and also found that women who meditated were quicker to become aroused when viewing erotic photography compared with women that did not meditate. Mindfulness meditation makes us smarter and improves decision-making. And according to a 2012 study by UCLA, published in the journal Frontiers in Human Neuroscience, jumping down the list here, mindfulness meditation can improve mood. It can increase our ability to feel empathy and benevolence for others. That study was conducted in 2008, or rather there was a study done in 2008, another study done by Northeastern University College of Science, no year given for that. Mindfulness meditation boosts attention span and focus, and this according to a 2008 brain scan study published in the journal PLOS One, that's PLOSONE. Mindfulness meditation can increase resilience and equanimity. Research found that Lamar Oser's left-to-right prefrontal cortex active ratio was quite literally off the chart. The prefrontal cortex activity ratio asymmetry indicated insane levels of equanimity, well-being, and resilience to setbacks. Number 8 on the list is that it slows down neurodegenerative disease, meaning that it can slow the onset of Alzheimer's and dementia, enhances creativity, and can actually reduce the feelings of loneliness. This study was looking at adults over the age of 40 and found that just 30 minutes of meditation a day for 8 weeks decreased their feelings of loneliness. And as always, the link will be in the show notes. You can read the full article for yourself. And don't forget, every Wednesday I answer your questions. Send those over ama@fppradio.com.
The podcasts of FPP Radio are licensed under Copy Heart. We believe that copying is a form of flattery and do not abide by the copyright laws. Those laws serve to restrict the flow of ideas which no one can really own. Copying is an act of love. Love is not subject to law. If you enjoy the show, consider joining the Fans program and get perks like ad-free versions of Peace, Love, Liberty Radio and FPP Radio News, and also get a copy of the monthly newspaper FPP News. To learn more or to join the Fans program, visit fans.fppradio.com.